but William's an excellent Cub Scout, was an excellent Cub Scout, now an excellent Boy Scout. So looking forward to hearing about the project.
My project is to improve an existing path that passes by the Bear Hill Water Tower. I will refer to this path as the Bear Hill Path. The path goes through the woods next to the water tower and down a steep hill to the back field of the school. Students often use this path to walk to and from school. The problem is that the path becomes muddy and slippery after rain or snow. Students slip and fall on the hill and might hurt themselves. Our plan is to improve this path by building steps into the hill on the school property and clearing vegetation by the water tower. I estimate the height of the hill to be 20 feet. With the 6-inch rise for each step, it will require 50 steps to be constructed. The steps will be made out of 4x6 pressure-treated boards put together into boxes. It will be filled with gravel to prevent slipping on the step. I have been in contact with my advisor, Mr. Teriyaki, as well as the superintendent, Mr. Sullivan, as well as others from different departments in the town. They have all been supportive of my project and think that it is needed. What I need approved from this water department is for them to approve me clearing all the vegetation.
Okay, William, thank you. So my question, I don't know, I know that we need access to the water tower. I don't know if your project will interfere with that in any way. Does anyone know how we access currently and whether the path has any impact on that?
Would Jason know it all?
So the path itself is the path. A portion of the path is the path to the plant, the tank. In the past, we've had the issues. Our biggest concern was the hanging trees and hanging branches over the path. That's the actual access road for the town. Our supplementary access path. And that was our one concern. At one point, we had discussed putting signs up there that this was water department property and pass at your own risk due to those concerns about the hanging branches and trees that are in that area of the path that we don't typically use, but it's only for emergency access.
Okay, my only concern, oh, go ahead, Lee, sorry.
I have a question about security at the tank. Aren't we supposed to have a specified security around the tank with fences and everything? Isn't that why we put the fence around the plant? DEP and the federal government is requiring security of our facilities, especially in these trying times. And it looked like this path is going directly next to the tank.
Is the path outside the tank, William?
Yeah, so the path passes outside of the fence.
Okay.
It's outside of the fence? Okay. I couldn't tell.
It's an existing path.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. I'm an Eagle Scout too, and I know it's hard. It's hard. I went through this when I was a kid, but we didn't have Zoom back then.
Yeah.
So I totally understand it. So like, I don't really know that area, but the proposed steps you're putting in, or the pathway, Jason, do you know if that's going to obstruct any vehicles going in and out?
The other issue with the steps themselves is we need to determine, we have a water main that goes down that side of the hill, and we need to determine exactly where that is. It's cross country to the high school. So we'd have to make sure that the steps weren't in conflict with that water main path, just in case there's ever an issue with the pipe that we need to maintain. We wouldn't want it to be under the path itself, the stairs portion of the path.
And the stairs are gonna be made out, you said like some stone, dirt, and timbers, and probably, right?
Yeah. Okay. I plan on contacting DigSafe, and they will hopefully mark out where all the underground utilities will be.
Well, technically, DigSafe is going to call us because we're not part of DigSafe, the water department. So I'd have to check with Brendan to determine. Brenda, you may know, is he going to be able to mark that out accurately, the pipe itself, or Carl?
I know Brendan has a fairly good idea of where that water main goes. As for accessibility to mark it out, I don't know because I haven't been up there. So that would be a Brendan question.
But well, you're not digging terribly deep. You know, you have to call it dig safe. You're not digging terribly deep, are you? A couple, less than a foot probably.
Yeah, I'm not digging deep into the ground.
Yeah, you just, you know, geez, if that water line ever had to get it repaired, you know, obviously you'd have to dig into his project, but you know, that could be down the road 10 years from now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I know. And we also, I believe, have rent out space on the water tank, right?
Yep.
For antennas. So I would just need to make sure. My main concern is that we have access to it.
It wouldn't affect that.
Service it. And also, I'm sorry.
It wouldn't. This project wouldn't have any effect on access to the tank by us or any of our vendors.
Okay, good. All right, that was my real question. So it sounds I'm in favor of the project.
Me too.
Okay, I have one other question.
Sure.
From the drawing, it looked as though it went directly across the water department property. Have there been many injuries over the last several decades using this path? That is an unofficial path. And now that we are going to make it official and it is going to be going over official water department property, if someone is injured there on this official path, how much liability do we have to assume?
And that was actually the biggest concern we had in-house was we had discussed it a while back when, after one of the storms last year, putting signs up saying that this is water department property, pass at your own risk, due to hanging branches out in the woods and hanging trees. So that's the only real major concern with this, as far as coming across our property. Or the water department property.
William was saying that it's slippery and people can fall, and that's not hanging branches and trees. So
that's technically off our property, Lee. That's on the downslope.
I didn't know where it was.
That's the school property.
Okay.
Our property is it actually, the part that's officially water. I'm not even sure the access road is water. I have to look. But the square that's the water department is a kind of a small portion of the path. But just in general, we had that concern about that access road. And maybe we can still buy those signs that we had talked about at a previous meeting, saying that, you know, pass at your own risk, water department property or something to that effect.
I think that'd be a good idea.
I agree.
I think
also towns generally have sovereign immunity in situations like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's just, you know what I'm saying, John? It's just,
yeah, I know.
It's maintaining the path too. Like there were times when we got emails about, oh, there's trees across the path. It's like, we'll get to it when we get to it. It's not our main access road. So it wasn't something that we were going to go out and actively.
And didn't we have a problem there with the leftover ropes course that Jack Buckley left there from decades ago? That it was a liability.
There was a lot of dead trees that those ropes course were attached to out there.
Yeah, because the school never removed their property from it. Yeah, but my whole thing is security and liability. But it sounds like a good project. And William, if you know any other Eagle Scouts, I've been trying to encourage someone to do some work on our Elms Meadow there to try and turn that into something, because it's a water source. Clean it up, get the people to stop dumping, try and get in the natives to encourage the bees, butterflies, and birds instead of what we have right now. But that's for another discussion.
Okay, so I make a motion that we, as just the Water Commission, on behalf of the Water Department, give our approval to William L. Wells Eagle Scout project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good luck.
Right, unanimous, William. Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is Black Horse Lane water connections. And do we have anyone here on that matter?
Yeah. So Steve Callahan here.
Jack Livingston.
Yeah, Jack and I are together on the same line here. So if you want me to go forward.
Sure.
Yeah, so thank you for letting us join the meeting. Would like to try to explain what's going on in Black Horse Lane. So, you know, Jack and I purchased this property 4 years ago. Don't hold me to all the dates, but I know we asked to meet Jason down there. I think it was in maybe late 19 or early 2020 when we wanted to extend the main. And then we shortly after, I think, asked for a will serve letter. So we were we met on site. There's an existing 6-inch main that ends right. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the property, but there's a gate. It's sort of the transition to the property at the end of Black Horse Lane. Black Horse Lane actually extends further, but the mains all stopped there. There was a hydrant, and there were 3 services there existing. So the goal was to, there were 2 existing lots when we purchased the property. We call them Lot A and Lot B. If you're familiar with there's one house at the end, it's Chip Smith is the owner. It would have been to the left, but beyond the existing 70 Black Horse is the main house and barn, or 70 Black Horse. So those 2 lots are labeled as 80 and 90 Black Horse Lane. So those were existing lots, and because we went in and, I'll say, improved them, we went to the board to make them conform, to make them Form A lots. So at that time, it was our intent to meet with you guys and to extend the 6-inch main down. And we also met with the fire department, and they requested a hydrant. So that's what happened. It's about 450 feet of 6-inch main to a hydrant at the location the fire department requested. So that was our part, was to put main in to service at that time 2 lots existing, and then the confusion may be more in the remaining property is about 4.5 acres. That's the main house and the barn. We have a plan, and we're going into the board the first week in September to go in, and there's enough there for. If you tore the house down, it would be 3 lots. So we provided. So most recently, we did 3 taps off the 6-inch and brought them to the curb. One of those would be a replacement for the existing 70 Black Horse. And then 2 are the 2 lots we anticipate getting. The reason we did that sooner than later was we recently paved the road. So we just wanted to get to the edge of the road. I'm jumping around a little here.
I've got a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So if I'm hearing you right, there was 1 existing water connection to 1 house. It was also a barn, I understand, and the property is large enough and has sufficient frontage apparently to be 2 or 3 lots. And you think 3 if you tear the house down, but there was 1 prior water connection, correct?
Well, yes, there's 1 for 70, and then there were 3 taps right at the gate. One was the Smith house. That's the existing house at the very end.
96.
Yeah, 96, sorry.
That's not yours though, right?
No, we do not own that.
Okay, I'm just asking about your property.
Okay.
How many connections, water connections previously were there to your property?
1.
Okay, that's what I thought. And now you have 3 taps. Have you used, other than the 1 existing connection, have you used the other 2 taps?
There's 5 taps now, John, not 3.
Okay, why are there 5? Well, because for this property or for other properties?
For the collective their properties. They've sold 80 and 90 off. I believe. So 80 and 90 have 2 taps that they put in, and then 70 they put 3 taps in at.
All right. So who bought 80 and 90? Is that Avila, who we got the email from?
Right. If I could address that, back in February, we entered into a purchase. February of 2020, we entered into a purchase and sale agreement with Art Avila for 80 and 90, and his attorney shortly thereafter asked for a will serve letter from both the sewer and the water department. So I contacted Brenda, who was nice enough to send me a letter, basically saying that we were approved for the 2 taps. And the second paragraph addressed the fees, just says that there'd be fees due within 60 days of the building permit, which for each property, which really didn't mean much to me, knowing that I was never gonna, or we were never going to apply for a building permit, that it would be somebody else.
So 80 and 90, who owns 80 and 90 right now? Art Avila or you?
Neither.
Well, I purchased from us. I believe he's conveyed to his buyers, his homeowners. So he's building, one house is under construction, the other has not started yet. But so I think the answer to your question is, I think one name is Sullivan. And,
all right, but you don't own 80 and 90 anymore.
We do not.
Okay. And who's using there was one existing tap, one existing connection to the property that you bought that's now been subdivided. Who got that connection?
Nobody.
So that would be the existing connection to the main house. 70 Black Horse is one 1-inch connection. It's off, right? It's been off for quite some time. The house is vacant and the water is off.
Okay. So if we have questions on 80 and 90, those would be for Art Avila or the people that purchased the property from him.
Hi, I can jump in. This is Debbie Avila. We had purchased the property. So can I explain? I can explain to you what's going on there. We purchased the property, and when we purchased the property and got the building permit, the extension wasn't even in the ground yet. They hadn't even done the water main extension. So to be honest, there was nothing to pay for. There was no water. We did have a letter saying that we would eventually be able to tie in to water, but the extension wasn't even done yet when we'd gotten the 2 building permits. So we got the 2 building permits. 80 Black Horse, both have been resold. They're clients of ours. 80 is just now started under construction. That one, we actually happen to be away right now, but that one, as soon as we get back, the connection fee will be paid on that one, because even though they don't need water yet or anything, there's no mechanicals, there's nothing there. It's just a frame. 90 Black Horse Lane had been issued a building permit, but the new owners are not using that house design. They have hired Sally Weston, and they're in the process of a whole new design process. It's just gotten through conservation, and it's in the waiting period, the appeal period right now. They are going to be they're going to be issued a new building permit. Once that building permit is issued, that tap will be paid within the 60 days. But it's not going to get paid right now because that old building permit is basically non-existent, just because the house is completely different than the one that got approved. Okay. So 90 will get paid once the new building permit is issued, which I would hope would be in the next several months. And then as stated in our letter, we have 60 days from the time the building permit is issued to pay for the tap on that. Okay, thank you for attending our meeting. I appreciate it. I know in your email to us, or what you're calling a letter, you said you weren't going to attend, so I'm glad you're here. I did find your email to be overly contentious. Actually, I felt the water department's emails were way over contentious. We were being told they were going to stop our project. Now, meanwhile, we weren't part of any of this, the getting the tap for anything. The developers who sold it to us were responsible for getting the utilities in. It really had nothing to do with us. And to be honest with you, the developers paid to have the extension put in. The developers paid for the fire hydrant to be put in. The water department didn't have to pay for any of that. And then for us to be receiving emails from the water department when we've lived in town and worked in town for over 20 years saying they're going to shut our project down. No wonder if you found my emails contentious, I thought that was an awful way to go about handling a situation that really, if you look at our record, I don't know why the water department is afraid they're not going to get their money. Number one, there was nothing there, not even a house, not even a foundation.
Okay,
and we're
all right. Can I ask you a couple
contentious emails?
Questions? We can agree, disagree as to who's being contentious, but I will tell you, it's not the water department from our point of view. Has 80 Black Horse used any water from the tap?
No.
There's no service.
There's no service.
Okay, and 90 has not used it.
And 90 has not even a foundation in the ground. It's a lot.
Okay. And prior to using any water from those taps, 80 will pay before it uses any, and 90 will pay before it
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
John, the one comment I will make, and this is on Brenda's behalf, it becomes a real headache for the department when people are tapping the water main and then not paying the fee. The fee is by definition in your rules and regs to be paid upon application for service, not when you get a water meter. So for Brenda then has to keep track of who's paid, who hasn't paid, who has a service in the ground, is the service being used yet, all that, it becomes a bookkeeping nightmare for her. That's why she requests, in the rules and regs request, payment upon tapping the water main, not upon service to the building.
Which I understand, but actually we didn't tap the water main. Like we had nothing to do with it. And I can assure you, and I've known Brenda for a very long time, almost the whole 20 years I've been in town. I can assure you that before we use one drop of water, that the service will be paid and the meter will be paid and installed. We're not living here and working in this town to steal water or anything like that. I don't know if she's had problems with other builders, developers, homeowners, but to be honest with you, we actually had nothing to do with when the taps went in. I mean, like I said, when we got our building permits, the water main extension wasn't even there. So there would have been nothing for us to even pay for. So now that we are going forward and the taps are there, as I said previously, we are only in the framing stage with 80. We don't have any mechanicals in yet, but we will as soon as we get back this week. We'll pay 80s, so there won't be one drop used before anything. And 90, as I've said, we have 60 days from the time the building permit is issued, and once that building permit is issued, we will pay for the tap on that. And that will be obviously before any water is needed.
Hey, John, if I could, to maybe go to Jason's point that maybe why this is.
Well, if you don't mind, sir, I'd like to deal with 80 and 90 first and then go on to your property because I think they're a little separate. Let's deal with 80 and 90. Steve and Lee, do you have any thoughts on this? And the proposal to pay 80 soon and 90 before water is used.
No, I can understand Brenda's dilemma, since it appears that this property has changed hands so many times and there's been a lot of confusion in it. We do not normally deal with situations like this. And to answer Ms. Avila's question, yes, we have had problems prior with developers who have tapped in and used water illegally. So this is why we become a little more stringent.
you know, part of our regs, if, you know, prior to tapping, all fees should be paid up at front. Again, that prevents any issues going forward when, you know, chasing down, you know, money.
And I will note that we won't be signing off on any other building permits until the fees are paid in the future. That letter was sent out in error.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're saying, so you're going to try to stop 90 Black Horse Lane's building permit, even though you can say that letter was in error, but we've been getting building. Can I just have excuse me just for 1 second? We have been getting building permits in town for years. We've been building in town for years. Avila Construction has. And we have never, ever, ever had to pay before the building permit. So when we received that letter, that is exactly the protocol that we have always followed. So I don't understand how the water department, when we've received a letter, and that's how it's always been done. I don't know, maybe you changed the bylaws, but not since we've been getting building permits. And I don't know how you have any right, like this is what I'm talking about, contentious. I mean, Mr. Frederico is sitting here saying, we're not gonna let any building permit get issued till it gets paid.
He didn't say that.
That's not how it goes. We have 60 days from the issuance of the building permit. Now, clearly no water is going to be used before that. There's nothing in the ground, not even a foundation. So for the water department to go forward and try to stop a building permit because the tap, which we didn't even put in, hasn't been paid, I don't believe is legal.
Okay, well, you can look into that legal matter if you want. I don't think Jason ever said he's taking away your building permit for 90. He says he's talking about the future and future operating procedures. He said that letter was sent out in error, and because it was sent out, we may make an exception in this case. But I think you misunderstood Jason. So
he's saying future one. I'm sorry. I thought he said we're not gonna let, we don't have a building permit for 90 right now. There's an old building permit for 90. There's not a new one. It's the old building permit is for a home that is no longer going to be built on 90 Black Horse Lane. A new home is being designed right now. So it's not, I'm not saying he's going to take away. The clients for 90 Black Horse do not have a building permit right now. They're going forward with it right now. They just got through conservation approval. And so we're waiting the appeal period in order to go forward with getting the building permit. So then maybe I did. Are you, Jason, saying you're going to try to stop that? Or are you just saying in the future, you want these paid before a building permit is issued?
In the future, there will be all water sign-offs will be contingent on fees being paid. This may be an exception to that rule if the board so deems that to be the case, because technically that letter, the previous letter that you received, you had 60 days from the time you got the permit, and you got a permit for 90. You might not have used it, but you never paid your fee still. So
right, because there was no water main there. The water main extension wasn't even there yet.
But it had been there for, it's been there for more than 60 days. It's been there for more than 60 days at this point, and including my original email, which was the nice email saying we needed to address this back in July, is over 60 days ago, stating that we'd like to get this addressed. And until we said we were going to stop work, that was the first time I heard a response from you.
Okay, see, we never received any of those. That went through the developer. So by the time we got brought in the loop, we were hearing that the project's going to get stopped, and we hadn't even heard anything about this.
And I apologize for that. I thought that you were in the loop on that. I didn't realize that you guys weren't being filled in on that. So I apologize. Okay.
Jason, this is Art Avila. I just would like to clarify something about the building permit. In order for us to get a building permit and to be sure that those lots were buildable. The permit had to be pulled by the JAK LLC. And that's probably one of the reasons why we were maybe never notified by the water department as to what was going on about supposedly, as you call them, the illegal taps. And to the defense of the developer, they were trying to do the right thing by extending the water main, putting a hydrant in. And the only reason they did do the taps prematurely was just so they didn't have to dig up the brand new asphalt road. They were trying to make it so Chip Smith had access to his property and it just didn't turn into a muddy dirt road. So I think everybody was trying to do the right thing. And I think everybody here now is still trying to do the right thing. Like I said, we've been building houses in Cohasset for a long time, and we've never, ever had to pay for our service until we were ready to connect to the water department. So for us to get these emails and hear that our project is going to be stopped, it sends the wrong tone. And I think that's probably lack of, because we weren't included in the emails. So for that, we apologize for being a little bit uptight about this, because we do have 2 clients and we're trying to keep them happy and also try to keep the water department happy.
Thank you, Mr. Avila. So 80 Black Horse Lane is not an issue. That's going to be paid. So all we're really talking about is 90.
Correct.
Because the letter went out and it's one situation, I would be willing to agree, if the other commissioners would, that 90 could be paid prior to any water usage, but that would not impact any other future applications that Avila Construction may bring that would be subject to what Jason talked about of paying prior to permits being issued. This would be an exception. Any thoughts, Steve and Lee, on that?
Okay, we're saying that we're going to allow them to keep the tap, and then before any water is used, but how will we know water is being used because we don't have meters?
Well, we'll have to pay within 60 days of 90's permit, which in 60 days, we'll be lucky to have a foundation in the ground. So there would be no water being used. I mean, it would get paid once to be honest with you, once the permit is issued, we'll pay the tap. We won't even wait the 60 days.
Because we have had issues with people who tapped in and used water and hadn't paid. This is something that I have come across being here for the last 10 years. So as long as you're going to do that, Ms. Avila, that's perfect.
Okay, right, Steve, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a little miscommunication on that, it can be understandable, and I'm amenable to that as well.
Okay, I make a motion that we agree that Avila Construction or their clients can pay the fee for 80 Black Horse Lane shortly when they return from being away, and can pay 90 Black Horse Lane water connection fee once a building permit is issued.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let's move on to 70 Black Horse Lane and the 3 potential lots there, one of which already has an existing water connection.
Okay, so well, we'll be happy to share the plan. We don't have our date, but we're going to zoning the first week in September.
Planning.
Planning, I'm sorry. And I don't know if that's all you need right now, but there's no plan to do anything. The property's on the market. It could get sold as, if somebody bought the entire 4.5 acres, house and barn. That's the way we've been marketing it for the last couple of years. But we're trying to get a plan approved. So
Sir, when you say a plan approved, you're talking about by the planning board to subdivide the property as opposed to a building permit.
That's correct. It will be
required.
All right, so you don't have any, right now you have one legal lot 4.5 acres with one existing house and one water connection on it. Although there are 2 taps, but there's no other buildable lot right now.
The issue is, John, they still have the existing tap being used and then 3 new taps. They don't have an approved plan for a subdivision. So if this proposed subdivision doesn't go anywhere, we have 3 taps sitting in the ground that'll never be abandoned because there's no incentive to do that. There's no fee paid, including they haven't abandoned the existing taps to the house that they still owe us to. So that therein lies the problem of allowing a tap like they did. They called the morning of for 70 and said, we're tapping the main today. Never had any other input other than that on these 3 taps. And now they're in the ground. They've been paved over. And if that plan for the 3 lot subdivision doesn't happen, what happens to those 3 lines?
So it's going to be down the road when we have possibly new employees, no one will remember this, and they get 3 taps for free.
No, or they get torn up because people forget they're there. Like they did out on Sawyer Street with the tap that didn't get abandoned when the tap should have been abandoned, and then it gets torn up because people forget there's a tap there.
Well, I guess if that's the concern, so these taps are like 10 feet long from the center of the road to the edge of the pavement, 10 to 15 feet tops. They're clearly marked. We do owe you, and we'll be delivering you an as-built. The only thing we have left to extend down there is the gas service, which has not happened yet. But we've extended a lot of the utilities, and we have Greg Morse Engineering as built at everything. It's all going to be put on a plan. You know, even though this is all private road and private property, but would certainly we're going to give everybody an as-built. So everything has been clearly documented. The water, where the taps are, and I mean, at a minimum, I guess the worst plan, if it's would the 3 taps be used, I would tell you if the main house stayed and somebody purchased the whole thing, I would say one would stay with the main house, one would probably go to the barn. I think that would always get spun off to have a separate service. And then there'd be maybe one if they didn't build another single family there.
But sir, I think that's Jason's point. I think you can't bring one to the barn without informing the water department.
Oh, we wouldn't. I mean, yeah. Look, I think part of the confusion is, and Jason asked me the first time, "Where's the subdivision plan?" And I think that's where we just put infrastructure in. We extended the main and provided service to the property lines. And it's not a subdivision, so we kind of fall in between. It's just an extension of the existing main. I don't know if that puts us in a different mind. We just put infrastructure in. We are not running and don't plan on running any services into the houses.
So the water main obviously belongs to the water department, including the taps off the water main.
Yes.
And if you put 3 in the ground, that has a potential of going to 3 homes, 4 homes. And like Jason said, if they get abandoned and, and there's no guarantee that, a person buys that home and keeps the property as is. And
we run into this situation where people forget, they don't convey to the new buyer that they have to then abandon the old one that still exists prior to connecting to the other 3 too. I mean, again, to the point, the rules and regs are, if you tap the main, you pay. It's not, you pay whenever you feel like paying afterwards.
Please bear in mind that we were under the impression it was 60 days from the building permit. So it didn't even enter our mind. We were trying to just avoid tearing up the asphalt that we just put down. And just for the record, the barn is on well water right now, private well water.
Yeah, I think to Jason's point is any utility, when you tap or extend, there's fees that have to be paid, to any utility that's in your area. I mean, did you have to pay for the gas going down the road? Did you pay for the electric going down the road?
Well, but they do the work. I mean, to our defense, we put and paid for all the infrastructure for water service, and that was all on us. The gas company, they do all that work, and the power company, they come and dig and put it all in. So in our minds, I've been doing this my whole life as well. We put the infrastructure in that, that gets handed over to you. And again, I know there's a lot of this down there, but it's a private road. It's not even town road. So,
but you had to pay for the other utilities, correct?
Oh yeah.
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 So it's the same thing for the water department.
Yeah.
You tap, a main, it's another service.
Yeah.
I'm just playing devil's advocate, but again.
Well, look, if that's, I guess, look, we're not going anywhere. If the issue was if a service didn't get used in the future and you're concerned, would cap it, cut it back and cap it.
Well, Jason, does it have to be removed?
No, they could go down the main and shut it off at the valve, the corporation. That's what we require for any bid that wants to abandon their service.
If a customer puts in a tap but they never use it, do they get a refund? It's a question I don't know the answer to.
I don't think so.
Seems to me in this case, it seems, and I could be wrong, everyone was acting in good faith with misunderstandings on both sides of what was required, and that we should keep in touch on this, and that if it looks like this is going to be abandoned, then it's going to be the obligation of the property owner to pay the fees to disconnect these, or if there is a subdivision and building permits issued, then the fees paid. I think in the future we need to, as Jason said, set up a policy where no tapping gets done, no building permits get issued until the fees are paid.
And the other one too, I would say at a minimum, you should require them to abandon the service that they already owe us abandoning, as well as abandon the service for 70 and tie 70 into one of those 3 taps.
Okay, so why couldn't they just keep 70 with the current service and just abandon all 3 taps?
Because they don't want to abandon all 3 taps right now because they want to subdivide. So I want to at least abandon the old infrastructure. So when they put in their pipe, they replaced 96's service with a new service line. So 96 service is still in place, the historic one. They need to abandon that, as well as abandon 70 service and tie 70 in to the new service for 70.
Is that agreeable, sir?
Yeah. So Jason, we owe you the 97. What's John?
96.
96. We did update him when we extended the main. So there's a meter pit.
But you didn't abandon his old service.
Right.
You just shut it off at the corporation.
We need to do that. And at the time, if you want us to switch over, I guess the unknown for us is if the main house is gonna make it or if it gets replaced. So it would be kind of crazy to run a service in there. We don't need.
But I just want you to tie the existing service for 70 into one of the 3 new services you just put in, and at least abandon the old stuff. So if you sell this property to somebody else, there's only 3 services to deal with, not 4.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. If you want us to go down and cap the 2 at the main, right at the gate, and I went over that with your guys when we were out there, we can arrange that and take those 2 meters. The meter is still in there for Chip Smith's house. You guys, I think, gave him a new meter when we extended his, that was a 750-foot run of a 1-inch main. So now he's down to, 150 feet. And he's got a new meter pit, a new service, all new gate valves. And we did all that for him. So yeah, if the question is you want to address the caps at the entrance, be happy to arrange that, and I'll get Pompeo back out there and we'll go get them and cap them.
And just make sure you call Brendan to inspect it.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think we need a vote. I think we have an agreement. Is that fair?
And I guess an agreement that they'll go in and terminate the other 3-2 services if the subdivision plan doesn't get approved.
Right. Is that agreeable, sir?
Yep.
Okay, Jason, I have a question about the permitting process in the town. Is all of this going to be included in the information for all departments on this property so that it does not get lost somehow in translation?
I can send out an email to John Hallen in regards to what the process is for this property in sign-offs, because we won't be signing off on these building permits until the fees are paid. This will not be a 60-day grace period scenario. This will be when the permits are pulled. Prior to permits being pulled for these 2 or 3 future houses, there'll be fees paid prior to permits.
No, but I just want to make sure, not just for this property, but for all properties. It seems as though there is a lack of communication in the permit process that is set up in the town.
The problem on this one specifically came with, it was during COVID, and there was some mistaken communications during the initial process with 80 and 90. The permits were signed off due to the letter being said that it was going to be paid within 60 days. So we signed off on the permits, and then it just slipped through the cracks internally at the water department, the fees being paid. So that's where that stands. So that was just an internal water department issue as to why we would have involved the building department sooner. We only realized this in July that those fees hadn't been paid.
Okay. So I think we've for now resolved these issues. I thank everyone for their time. And you're always welcome to come back to any of our meetings.
Okay, well, thank you for having us, and hopefully we've cleared some things up, and Jason will coordinate with Brendan on those cuts, the existing services.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so I think we maybe for a future meeting we can put on the agenda the building permit process and communications throughout the town on that, and the water department's involvement.
Got it.
Yeah, because I understand with COVID and everything was a difficult time. And also, I don't think I think we need to work in the future on kind of communications with the building department so that we're always involved in the process.
Yeah, well, we noticed there was this snafu with 508 Chief Justice Cushing, and that was way before COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are serious issues that we
but
were
that
never
was also previous administration too. John is very good, is very by the book with everything as far as the building department is concerned.
No, but even so, that should have never happened. That process, we should have been informed as commissioners about that.
508, 100%. Like I said, but that was before John was here, Hallen as well. So
no, but who was the one that set up the whole permitting process? Was that was that Bob Egan who set up the whole thing?
508 CJC or the current process?
The current process. Who set that up? Because that was under the current process. Who set that up? Was that just Bob Egan himself?
Are we talking about 508 or the program that's in place? Permitize, the permitting software?
Well, the permitting software that allowed 508 to go the way it did.
508 happened before the permitting software was in place. That's my point. 508 is before I worked here. So that was that the permits were approved before I even worked for the town. So that was 3 years ago. So there's a new process in place now that yes,
Yeah,
we
well,
can.
there was a new process in place then that was not effective. Okay.
All right, so let's go on to Tetra Tech update to piloting.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Tony Omobono, and here with me this morning from Tetra Tech is James Christopher. I'm going to turn it over to James, and he can share his screen for a presentation on the update to both Lilly Pond and.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened. James, you should be able to show your screen now. I made you a co-host.
Yeah, I'm trying. Oh, wait. Okay, how about that?
There
Okay.
you go.
Got it.
All right, so this morning, I'd like to do a brief update on the Lilly Pond GAC project and the Elms Meadow Pfas removal process. The Lilly Pond, I won't go over this again. As you know, we conducted some pilot testing last fall that went through January, and the purpose of that was basically to remove TOC from the finished water to reduce the disinfectant byproducts. We had set a target of 50% removal of the organics to make sure that the THMs in the finished water would be below the maximum contaminant level. So, and earlier this summer, we provided a draft report for review. Jason had a comment relative to the operating cost. So we went back and did some additional work, which I'm going to go through with you right now to simulate what the performance would be and what the revised operating costs would be. So one of the first things we did, this is the actual pilot test data. We ran 2 columns at different empty bed contact times or flow rates. We put all that graph together and came up with the gray line, which is basically an equation to simulate the TOC removal versus time. So then we proposed in the report for the full-scale system to have 3 GAC vessels that would be operating in parallel, but the carbon would be changed out, not all together, but sequentially, so that we could get the maximum use of the carbon. So what this graph represents is the operation of each of the 3 vessels, and just hopefully my cursor will show up here. So if we look at vessel number 1, we're just allowing the carbon to become exhausted. In middle of April, we basically do a change out. So now we're removing about 85% of the TOC. We allow that vessel over time, following the equation I showed you, to basically get used up. When we get to a certain minimum removal, we then go to the next vessel. In this case, we picked the end of June, do another change out. That vessel now goes to a higher removal, and the overall system removal is improved. And then finally, because our season from about May through September is where in the past the highest disinfectant byproducts concentrations have occurred. we did in this simulation, a third change out about the second week of September. So once you can see vessel 3 now is providing a high level of removal while vessels 1 and 2 are at a lower. So the next thing we did is we basically took the historic flows by month, divided it into flow for each week of the year, looked at how many bed volumes through the treatment system that represented, applied the equation I showed you, and the carbon change outs that we were just looking at starting here in April, and then the last change out in September. And what we get by doing that single change out per year and staggering the vessels is we get a removal of a minimum of about 52% and a maximum right at 70%. Now, of course, in actual operation, you'll want to look at what your TOC in and out of the system is, and you may adjust this timing. You may wait longer to do the first change out. You may compress the time between change out to produce a higher level of removal. But this is basically showing that we can obtain the target removal by doing a single change out of each of the vessels in a single year. And then the final thing that I'm going to show here is the blue is basically looking at the historic TOC, which varies anywhere from about 2 to 5 milligrams per liter coming out of the plant. And this just shows the percentage of time that it's less than this particular value. We have an equation to predict what the THMs might be. So the green and the gray are basically what the concentrations in the system should look like after we install the carbon system based upon the historical TOC produced by the treatment plant. So as you can see here, there's going to be a significant shift of the TOC the THM concentrations to lower levels in the future after this system is put into operation. So finally, we went in and we redid the cost in the report. This is a table from the report. This is assuming that we do a single carbon change out of each vessel per year, as shown in the previous illustrations. And the operating cost in terms of dollars per 1,000 gallons, if we're at an annual average flow of 1.2, which MGD, which is what we use in the report, is approximately 63 cents. So that is the update on the Lilly Pond report. I can stop here if you have any questions, or I can move on to the Elms Meadow information.
If I can just ask, is that 63 cents a gallon that the cost would be?
That's per 1,000 gallons.
Okay.
Who said that? Now, how do you determine when to do the change out?
You are regularly measuring at the plant what the total organic carbon is in the water leaving the plant. So basically, you would look at what it is leaving the GAC system. Once it started trending upward because your carbon is getting used up, you would basically then schedule a change out. So it's based upon operating experience. You could also just do it regularly on a schedule, something like I showed here in this example, where in the late spring, you do a change out, midsummer, you do one, and then early September, you do a change out.
Okay, now we do all the testing in-house for this, right?
Yeah, yes, and actually, TOC testing can be a little bit more expensive. The other thing you can do that you can do at benchtop with a meter that we used on this study is you can measure UV absorbance. It tracks TOC pretty good. It's a simple measurement that takes all of about 5 minutes to do.
So James, we could sample each filter individually too, right? To see what the trend is for each one on TOC or UV.
Yes, yes. Yes, you would be looking at the performance of each individual vessel, and then you would look at the composite performance of the combined flow from all three.
Now, how many towns in Massachusetts are using these systems?
I can't specifically answer that for Massachusetts. I know that this is a very common system used in many communities. I know our company in the last couple of years has done a large system in Alabama, 3 or 4 systems here in Florida, 1 in Ohio. So it's a pretty common method of treatment.
Well, how common is it in the New England region?
Commissioner, we could definitely do some research on that for you and get you an answer to that, Jason. It is a fairly common treatment process.
Given the issues with PFAS, it's going to become even more prevalent in this area.
Yeah, that goes without saying. Correct, Jason.
Now, can the charcoal be cleaned and reused, or what do they do with it? Or I think at one point you did mention something about having reused charcoal.
Yes. Calgon carbon for certain and other manufacturers will basically, they will deliver you the original load of carbon for the vessels. Then when it comes to change out, they will basically remove the carbon, set it aside. They will reactivate it at their facility. And then at the next change out, they will bring it back. So you will have your own dedicated amount of carbon that will be reactivated and reused.
Okay, so looking at this replacement of 206,000, that is the original carbon that is getting reactivated, and that's how much it costs to reactivate it?
That is original virgin carbon. The reactivated carbon will be somewhat less than that. I can find out what that would be, but this is based upon brand new virgin carbon.
Okay, so you're saying that our annual costs could possibly be considerably less than the 276,000 a year.
Yes, it should be less than that. Yes.
You know, I would appreciate to find out how much of a discount that would be reusing the carbon.
Yeah,
it sounds like we would have to do probably 2 virgin carbons and keep switching them out.
Yeah, you would, the original 3 vessels would be loaded, and then after that you could go to reactivated carbon. And the good news is if you are buying it from Calgon, their facility where they do reactivation is in Pittsburgh. So unlike some other communities, the transportation cost is not as great as other places in the country.
James, how much of a degradation do you get every time you reactivate?
I think that they probably have to add back in maybe 10% of virgin carbon to replace what's lost in the reactivation process.
All right, now, is there any liability in what is removed from our side when they are reactivating it or anything?
No, there's not. They basically, the reactivation process is done with steam and heat. There is a discharge, but they have air permits that they are required to maintain to make sure that there's no emissions from their facility.
So basically, if you're saying 10% has to be renewed every time, as we lose 10%, but say 10 years down the road, we might have to get a whole new virgin carbon again, possibly?
Well, so you send a load back of carbon back, they do the reactivation, they will add some makeup carbon each time. So what's really happening, over that period of 10 years, you may then, it may be all new carbon from what you originally started. Okay.
Now, one other question. I've been looking at this carbon, and I know we have a serious problem with manganese. I don't think that would deal with that at all. But in heating carbon, it says it sometimes can reactivate whatever compounds were taken out.
I haven't really heard that, but sometimes there is a phenomenon where some of that manganese may absorb onto the carbon and under certain conditions might get released in the water. But it's not, the carbon's not going to produce anything that's not already there. And we're applying the carbon at the end of the treatment process, after you've gone through coagulation and filtration.
No, I was talking about when they're reactivating the carbon.
Oh.
Eating it.
I have not heard of that.
Okay. All right, now, you don't know of any other systems in this general vicinity that we could maybe see or in action?
We could actually arrange for that to happen. But let me do a little bit of homework on that, and I'll find the systems that are most relevant to what you're doing here, and we can arrange to have a visit.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so I think we can move on to the next slide. We're running a little behind schedule.
All right. For Elms Meadow, late this spring, early summer, we obtained some water samples. We tested them by what's called rapid small scale column test. Basically, you're feeding the water through a very small volume of an absorbent to test its ability to remove the compound. One thing I want to point out before I show the results, which If you look at this table, the first column is the sample that was collected in January of this year, in which the total of 6 PFAS compounds that are regulated was at 25 nanograms per liter, which is above the state standard, which is 20 nanograms per liter. Next to it in the next column is the analysis of the sample that was obtained for testing. Because there were some particulates in the water, and because we grind down the media to a very fine size to use in the column, we can't tolerate a lot of suspended solids. So that third column is shows you what the concentration was after filtration. So the reason I'm presenting this is because unfortunately during the test, the concentration we were feeding to the columns was less than what you were seeing in January. And when I go a little bit further, kind of give how that may have affected the testing. And I would not interpret this as if we put filtration in that you would remove all the PFAS. I would interpret this as in this particular batch of water, we had some suspended solids that when we removed them, some of the PFAS went with them. So on the
James, what filter size did you use?
The filter was a 12 micron filter. So we ran 2 columns. One was with GAC, which we were just talking about, one with ion exchange. This shows the performance of the GAC column. Over here on the y-axis, this is basically the concentrations of the contaminants that we just saw in the previous table. And then as we ran water through the column, here's basically what happened in the column. And one thing you'll notice here is very soon, at less than 10,000 bed volumes, we had breakthrough of some of the compounds. As we ran the test further, we saw all the compounds except for the PFDA break through the column. So when we're doing a full scale design of these systems, what we're looking for is when we reach about 80% breakthrough is when we want to change out the media. So then I want to go to this is the ion exchange column. The one thing that hopefully stands out to everyone, 2 things. One is we ran a lot higher number of bed volumes through this, 250,000, and no compound broke through during the test. If we had had higher concentrations in the influent water, we probably would have seen breakthrough near the end of this test. So we took the data from the column testing and we determined what the removal of the PFAS per gram of media was. And one reason why, before I show the next results, I want to say, because on the ion exchange and some of the GAC compounds, we did not see breakthrough, the the bed volume life that I'm going to show are minimums. Because we don't actually know what the full capacity of the media was because we didn't get it to break through on every compound. So with that said, we then took the January concentrations, we applied the removal rate that we got for each of the compounds, and this is a result. And one thing that you'll notice here, the perfluorinated decanoic acid, the PFDA, within 2 months of operation, started to break through. Then a second compound did, and with the GAC, based upon the removal rates we got and using the January 8 concentrations, the system would need change out within 6 months. And once again, this is very conservative because every compound did not get breakthrough. So our actual removals may be higher. Now, in comparison, this is the ion exchange media. And here you can see, once again, PFDA started breaking through in this system. PFNA started breaking through, and then another compound. But here in the ion exchange system, we could operate for a minimum of 13 months before the effluent from the system hit the regulatory limit. And once again, because in the testing, we didn't actually get breakthrough, the removal rates that we estimated that we based upon this graph upon are very conservative. So the actual operation time would be in excess of 13 months of operation. So we have done the full report for this. The only thing that unfortunately we're waiting on is we're waiting on some media cost so that we can finalize the report. I want to show you on this next slide. This is what the full-scale system would look like. Taking water coming from the existing wells, we would feed it through 2 bag type filters to remove any suspended solids. It would then pass through a pair of media vessels. The vessels shown here are for GAC, so they're larger. The GAC has a 10-minute empty bed contact time, the ion exchange a 3-minute. So that means these vessels are 3 1/3 times larger than what the ion exchange vessels will be. So it would run through this system, then it would come back to the intake of the existing pump and be pumped out into the system. So that is my update on the testing and where we're at with that project right now. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to try to answer them.
I was wondering, sir, for this system, is that 63 cents per 1,000 gallons, is this included in that, or this would be above and beyond that?
This is a totally separate system. And we have not estimated the operating cost for this system yet.
Okay, because that will be important to determining the future of Elms Meadow. And because right now the benefit of Elms Meadow is it produces water that's cheaper to treat. This may make it more expensive, so we'll have to analyze that. But are you planning to do a cost analysis on this?
Yes, we've already done an analysis for the GAC. The media supplier for the ion exchange has been slow in getting us those costs. And the other thing we have to do, and this relates to the question earlier, this media actually has to be disposed of. It cannot be reused. So we're also looking into where the closest location that could accept this material and dispose of it and what that cost would be.
Okay, thank you.
James, what's the assumption on backwash here? We'd be going to the sewer?
Right now we're thinking it's going to be ion exchange, and you can order the media so that it's pre-washed. And if you order pre-washed media, there is no backwash to the system.
But what about the suspended solids removal?
Those filters, they're just bag type filters. So you would remove the filter bag and replace it when you needed to.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. You based it on our January readings, and that was really high compared to other readings we had. So if the PFAS level for some reason is not as high as in January when we found it was a high water level, that would mean we would get considerably more usage out of either system, correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And in fact, up until the January reading, most of the readings were below the standards. So you could, in theory, you could run it forever.
The other one, James, on this, we're now doing monthly sampling out there for PFAS. Do you think it'd be worth sending the samples out to be regular samples and then a filtered sample to determine if it's particulate or not?
Yes, I think that would be a great idea, Jason, because if it ultimately turned out that that enough of the PFAS were associated with particulates that you could remove with a couple small filters, that would be a much less expensive system than, you know, the full-blown media absorber system.
So what micron filter did you say they used?
They use 12.
And what's your bags that you proposed? What's the filtration level on those 12?
We're proposing 5 microns.
Okay.
How big a building is it? That's how big the building would be.
Now, if we did this on site here, how we would not be able to fit it in the existing building, would we? Or would we have to build a new addition or extension?
No. What I'm showing on the screen is the existing building. So the treatment equipment all fits within the existing storage area. And assuming that we're finally going to end up with ion exchange, those vessels will be smaller than what I'm showing here.
Good. What's the estimated cost?
So when can we expect to know some numbers and the feasibility of everything?
I'm going to say that it'll be another 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Just to make sure the supplier has time to give us the information, because they are really backed up right now.
Can you give us preliminary numbers on the GAC portion, James?
The operating cost of the media, yes, I do have them. They're in a table in the report right now. I don't have it up on my machine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I can send that to you.
What about the construction costs on the GAC?
I'll have to check. I'm being a little evasive because our project engineer who's working on this had a death of the family, which is why she would be presenting today, not me. And she's away from work right now. So
We'll get that information over to you, Jason.
Now, when was the last PFAS test that we ran?
I'm going to leave that to Carl or Fred to answer. I'm not positive they're doing that.
Because I thought that
it was 17.5 2 weeks ago.
17.5. Okay.
So we're probably 2 weeks away from another sample being taken because we're doing it monthly.
And what was it before that? The month before?
That was the first one that was taken.
Okay, because I thought we were having problems doing the testing because we couldn't get DEP because
we finally got DEP officially, and that's why we sampled last month.
Okay. So if next month comes in low, would we be able to open the well field at any point?
That would be up to you guys to determine, because the fear is always, if you have a hit again, having to do public notification.
You know, I'm just wondering if the samples come in low and we are actually looking to.
Can you hold on 1 second, Lee? Because I'm going to put you on speaker because Fred, no one else can hear. For whatever reason, they're having problems with the plant. So I'm going to translate to Fred and maybe Carl. The question is, if the results continue to be low, how would you feel about turning the pump station back on if they continue to be below 20? Fred said he wouldn't have an issue.
He wouldn't have an issue?
With reactivating if we continue to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering whether.
So Fred said we should probably tighten up the sampling schedule and maybe even do it more frequently and to get data. So yes, he. Yeah, that's the other piece too, is we're only pumping for 2 days. So maybe the next time we pump after 2 days, take a sample, and then keep running for 2 more, and then take another sample just to see if there's any change based on. And DEP will only allow us to pump 2 days. Well, we can ask them. We're seeing lower numbers. Yeah, so we'll reach out to DEP and see if because we got approval from DEP to do 2 days of pumping, but let's see if they'll allow us to do 4 days. Just to see if we get any change. Because if it's below 20 in the samples, then that might be justification to do it. We're not putting out contaminated material anymore, or it's less contaminated. So therefore they might be more inclined to allow it.
See, I'm just wondering whether or not if we are getting low numbers, if we could turn on the well field while we have the low numbers, while we are waiting for one of these filtering systems to be in place.
Yeah, it's just like I said, the only fear would be, I guess, Carl, if we have one more high hit, what happens versus 2? You put the notice out again. So the notice has to go out again if we ever go over 20. So that notice we sent out would go out again if we hit 20 again.
Well, we should probably see what the trend is, if it's maintaining or slightly going up or down. If it's slightly going up, we know we have a problem. If it's slightly going down. But it wasn't, and I'm just being devil's advocate. We went from December being in the 17 and then January was 26. Yeah. And there was no real indication. So if you have that same scenario happen again this year, you're sending out a public notice and everybody's going to say, you told us you shut the well field off and now it's back on. So I'm just saying we have to be open to the public at that point and maybe have a meeting with the Board of Selectmen and say, this is the game plan. And but that would be my gut. That would be my only hesitation. And I would think you guys would, Carl and Fred, agree that would be the one hesitation. Is we said we would never, I can't because I don't think my speakers work because whatever. I could hook you up on this computer. I apologize. We're having issues. So I'm on the town's network. They're on the internal network. That's the difference.
Okay. So I think on this, Jason, we're kind of agreed. Let's get some more sampling information. Then in the future, we can discuss the plans for Elms Meadow once we have that information to consider.
Yeah. I think to get into January again potentially might be a good one and see what. I know it seems like a long way off, but it'll be here before you know it. That's my only fear, Lee, is if we have to be very clear and open with everybody that we're turning it back on if we do, because that public notice is going to have to go out.
Yeah, well, my problem is we have absolutely no baseline to see between and our testing.
Agreed. I mean, we only have 6 months of data. It's not a good trend. So but it's the gun to your head.
Like, the thing that is jumping out at me is here we are now in August getting the 17 that we were getting in December, and then we went up to 26 in January. It just bogs my mind here that there should be something that we could see that might be happening.
Yeah. So that might, like I said, we'll get the 5 micron filter one running too, and potentially look at implementing those filters sooner than later if we see any difference in the samples, because there's no negative to doing that. Even if we end up moving them with a final design, we can put something in. I would assume they can't be too hard, based on this drawing, they can't be too hard to install. So
I think it's a great plan, Jason. But I do agree with Jason that there's a concern. We don't know why the number spiked up to 26. Month to month, there's the fear it could happen again, unless we know exactly why.
You know, and unfortunately, we couldn't test to see when it went down.
Right. Okay, well, thanks everyone on that. And thanks to Tetra Tech and everyone for your help on this. I understand that you have agreed as part of the scope of your work to make the presentation to the other boards in town. We'll try to do it if we can as a joint meeting, but it may be more than one. We appreciate very much your willingness to do that. I think the other committees and boards will be very interested in hearing this information. So we will talk about scheduling that. We'll work around your schedule, which may be difficult, just getting everyone's schedules aligned, because we'd like to do advisory and the select board, potentially the joint meeting. And we can, Jason, hopefully you can work on scheduling that with everyone's schedule. Are we ready to go forward with that meeting now?
I get it. I updated my capital plan based on the most recent revision by Tetra Tech on the final report. I need to review that with Fred and Carl internally. And then we'll bring that to you guys for your next meeting. And then, then after that meeting, we can schedule with the other boards.
Okay.
I'd say in the September meeting, we discuss the 10-year plan, what's being done as capital and what's being done as regular maintenance. And then we'd be prepared at that point.
Great. This is really helpful information. Thanks, James and Tony.
Great. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so now we go on to the regular part of our agenda, and we've had some very important matters that we've dealt with. It's taken a little longer than anticipated in the schedule. So maybe we can pick out if there are any items in the list that are the most important to consider at this meeting. And I leave it open to Lee and Steve or Jason.
I can try and go through these as fast as possible, and then maybe after I'm done, regroup and have any specific questions on that. Or
that sounds great. Thanks, Jason.
Okay, so financials. I'm assuming you guys all reviewed with Don, forwarded over. So I'm gonna leave that there.
Okay, well, the question I had about that was, I saw the report from Chris that we were down 35% in water production last month. So that's going to greatly impact our sales. So that's something we have to be looking forward to after our next billing period and keep in the back of our mind.
The one benefit is we're getting some good connection fees in, Lee, that we knew were coming, like the 390 CJC, as well as finalize the tank lease, and we're just waiting on that to be signed off. So we'll start getting that rental income as well.
All right, this is with T-Mobile?
Yep.
All right, so that's down the list. So we can say that's coming up shortly.
Yep, that's been finally approved. They have 30 days to get us back their signed contract. They're required to give us a $5,000 deposit upon approval. The cost of that is to helpfully offset the cost of the legal fees of reviewing the contract. And then they'll be paying the rent after that.
Okay.
The abatement requests, I'm gonna leave that. I guess that one you do have to talk about. And I'm gonna let Brenda, if she's here, discuss that with you guys, because that's a Brenda one.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
This was the email I sent you guys a while ago.
Yep.
So the woman has a property. She has 2 properties in Cohasset. So the one that she's upset about, you know, she's not living in it, but she is connected to the town water. So she's complaining about paying for the service fee, or what used to be the capital recovery charge. You know, she's saying that she went through our rules and regs. I didn't really understand all of it, but I explained to her that our policy is just because nobody's living in the house, you're physically connected to our water system at any time. You can have that water turned on and boom, you're all set. I said, if she wanted it to go away, she would have to cut and cap from the water main. And then I would discontinue the entire account. I said, but then I preface that with, when and if you want water again, you're gonna have to pay $13,600 connection fee. She didn't like any of my answers. I've been telling her this for years. So this is why she started, well, this started in May. She sent the first letter to us. Saying she's been overcharged and she wants her money back.
But Brenda, I completely agree with you. And this was also at town meeting. The town meeting approved the capital recovery charge. And so I don't even know if, as a commission, we have authority to waive it in any situation. And so I think you've done what's correct and what's required. And if she doesn't understand it, well, you know, I think you've explained it to her, and that's all you can do. But she's not entitled to recovery of capital recovery charge that the town meeting voted on and approved.
Well, the other thing about that too is we know that there are other people in town who are not getting any water, who have wells, because I've personally talked to some of them over the years, and they said, oh yeah, we understand, because in case I have a problem with my well, I know I can just automatically turn the water on. I don't have to go through anything, and you're paying for the services. It's like the same thing. We're all paying for the tea. How many of us use it? But it's there when we need it.
Well, also, we've probably got 20 or more accounts. I'm just going to throw out Leo Meehan for one, who's purchased all these properties torn down. He pays the capital recovery and the sewer service fee on every single solitary one of his accounts, even if there's nothing on there, because he has the capability to build. And he's not the only one. There's several others that, you know, they're paying the capital recovery charge, whether it be during construction or whatever. I don't know. So
Right, we'd be opening the door too. If someone says, okay, this is only my summer place, I'm only here in the summer, so I don't want to pay capital recovery charge for the rest of the year. No, you're hooked up. If you decide to come back for a weekend, you can turn the water on.
Exactly.
You got to pay the charge.
Yeah, so I'll send her a letter saying that, you know, it was agreed that this is the policy. And I had asked her to please attend a meeting, but she refused until she wanted to know what the board said first. So I'll send her a letter. I'm sure, well, I'm not sure. I think she'll probably want to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
That's okay. And I would say not only the policy, but this was approved by town meeting. So this is the requirement, not just a policy.
Okay.
So that's that one. 390 CJC, they paid their connection fee, but they're only connected to fire service until they have a permitted solution for wastewater. Cook Estates, I sent you guys the engineering memo that was written by their engineer. That's the update on that one. 508 CJC, I talked to John Hallen this morning. He is going to talk to Rich Henderson today and tell him that if he doesn't have an application in hand by next week, he will be writing him an official certified letter stating that they're in violation of their permit.
Okay, now while we're on here, I saw the test results. I thought it was very strange that upstream was the barium was higher than downstream.
You know, that just could be when you're taking one grab sample, it's a grab sample. So
yeah.
You get one particulate different upstream versus downstream. It's just, that's the nature of a grab.
Okay, but, you know, it didn't seem as though there were some contaminants in there, but it didn't have effort. Because I was concerned after reading their application for their initial permit, how they had diverted all runoff going into Peppermint Brook.
But that's all bedrock. That's just mineral? Natural.
Could be any, I mean, Steve, I'm not a LSP.
Chemical from rocks and whatnot.
That could be from anything. I mean, I don't know. Again,
well, it could be from automotive stuff.
It could be from a battery from an electric vehicle too. Yes, I don't. Yeah. I mean, there's no way to tell.
No, I'm just
saying. I mean, if
yeah.
you want, I guess the question is, that was an $800 round of samples. If you want us to continue to sample, we can, but it's going to be $800 a whack to continue that sampling.
You want to do it again? You could do it again.
Oh, I mean, it might be beneficial to maybe look at it twice a year to make sure.
Okay.
Because it is directly going into our water supply, and they are a huge automotive.
I will make sure that Jonathan gets it on his sampling plan for the year to do it biannually. Elms Meadow update, we got that. Lily Pond, Milfoil algae. So our existing Milfoil rep, we requested pricing to come out and help us determine what to do. They were unresponsive since June. So I reached out to another person. They're going to come in, as long as you guys are okay with it, for $5,000 and remap all the invasives in Lily Pond. They can come out this week if it's approved. So
wait, what are they going to do?
Remap the extent of the infestation and what's exactly there, so we can determine the best path forward to fixing the problem we have. What's the extent of the milfoil and all that. So if you guys are amenable to that, we're going to move forward with that this week.
Well, I know we've been having a problem with the pond for a long time. It was supposed to have been dredged over 25 years ago, and now we have the severe manganese problem.
So as part of that too, I can speak to that. That's a piece. So the algae too, we ordered the boaters to do an algae sample. We're hoping to be in this week as well. We're also doing the manganese issue. I've been looking a lot into the aeration system that was originally put in back in 2008. That was technically to reduce manganese levels in the pond. So we're in the process of looking into potentially reactivating that system once the peak season's over. We believe that the last time it was activated, it probably stirred up a lot of sediment in the pond, similar to what happened the last time we harvested weeds. So we're going to try and mitigate that by either putting it under on top of a benthic barrier, the discs, there's big discs in the water. We'll either put them on top of a benthic barrier to reduce the impact or slowly turn them on versus just turning them on full blast day one. So I'm going to work with Fred and the guys here to try to reactivate that and determine its effectiveness as well. I've been talking to Weston and Sampson, who did that original installation. They actually just put in one in Peabody in their pond. And I'm asking them to get me pre and post TOC, manganese and iron levels prior to the aeration going in, and then after it's been in place to determine how effective it may be if we do reactivate it. The boat has been purchased. It's here. It's actually going to be used to map the invasives by the consultant. as well as we're going to use it out to go take the algae samples once the bottles get here. The testing results, I'm assuming that's the testing results from 508 CJC. You guys got those. We'll continue.
Okay, well, no, also the tests that you've been doing with your interns, and how
Yep.
about the other tests that aren't you, we're looking for the test results of everything that comes in monthly.
I can see what the best way to do that is. Oh, the other one, I forgot. Jonathan took all of the data and put it into Hawkwinds, and I'm going to show you. Hold on, give me a second while I vamp here. He is going to now start including these in the monthly operating reports, so that you will then see these graphs on a regular basis in the MOR for this stuff. Hold on, graphing snapshots, 2020. Iron. Hold on, let me share my screen. Totally forgot we're going to talk about this. Share screen. So he has graphs like this now for the past 3 years that we will then start providing in the MOR on a monthly basis. So you can see these trends. And as time goes on and more data is put in, they'll be added to the MOR accordingly. So you can see this is here at Lilly Pond, the iron, manganese, TOC, and disinfection byproduct percent removal. So he has these for, that's the first quarter. So we're going to be looking at making these now running averages, basically. Like you'll see, similar to what you see with your THM graph, you'll see a similar graph for each different contaminant that we have results for in the system.
Good. Now, have we tested manganese from the reservoir at all?
We have. It's been sporadic, but after the discussions about putting the pipeline to the reservoir that came up, I had Jonathan now to take, and he's going to take those monthly to see if there's if the quality is better there or not. So when that originally was done, John and Steve, Lee brought up this pipeline from Iron River to feed the plant directly. We reached out to the 2 engineers that worked on that. One works for Woodard and Curran, and one works for Tetra Tech. And both of them said that they believe part of it was money of why it didn't get done, but also the other part was the water quality wasn't significantly better. So we're going to look into that and determine, has the water quality changed significantly between now and then? So we're going to sample at the fish ladder effluent, but then on a semi-regular basis, we're going to sample in the pond where it's not actively flowing to determine if there's any difference in the quality in the major part of the pond versus where it's actually flowing before we make any decisions on that project.
Okay, because I remember the discussions around that project 25 years ago.
Yeah, so I have the full design sitting here behind me.
Yeah, and it was financial. I was also talking to another engineer about possibly maybe doing something at Bound Brook, putting in some kind of a dam with the gate and bringing the water from Bound Brook.
Where? To here?
Yeah.
It already does. I mean, we just shut the gate and the water comes here versus going down.
Okay, no. Well, I mean, to get it from it's the reservoir water. Yeah.
You'd have to basically, what you're tempting
no,
to do,
but what I'm saying,
you have to dump Lilly Pond. You have to dump Lilly Pond and then shut the gate and open Iron River and let the water flow down from Iron River to here. It would be an interesting test case to test that water quality question to do that. The fear is you're dumping a whole bunch of water. And if we ever get into a drought scenario, we have an issue. So that's where that one is. Elm Street Water Main project is awarded. All the shock drawings are being reviewed. And we're hoping to schedule a pre-construction meeting in the near future. Just waiting on the contractor availability to start the project.
Who got the bid? The low bidder?
Gravity Construction. They were the people that did the Lincoln Lane water
were
main
the
move.
bidder by about what, 60, 70,000?
Yeah, when I texted him, he's like, I almost threw up when I saw how much money I left on the table, but he says he can do the job. So that's the bidding. You never know how much you're going to leave on the table.
Okay, I have a question about the Elm Street corridor with that jog that goes up to St. Stephen's. What are they planning there?
No idea yet. That has yet to be determined.
Because I didn't know whether or not that's going to affect our water main.
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know if they wanted to get a spur.
We're not going past 24, I want to say, with our project.
Okay.
So if you want, I'll put a plug in for go in and fill out the survey for Elm Street corridor if you're interested in being involved.
Is it project?
I've been trying to.
Bear Hill tank lease, I said update so that we're hopefully get those contracts signed within the next 30 days. The Lagoon update, it's operating. They're doing a lot of intensive work out there. And if anybody else has a comment, Fred or Carl, I'll leave it to you guys to raise your hand. Arc Flash, I'm assuming that's a you guys thing.
That would be me. We had an arc flash study done when Woodard and Curran first came on board in 2012. It's a NFPA requirement. There was an update done in 2018 that Woodard and Curran completed. The regulation has become more conservative, so we now need to do Elms, Meadow, and Whitney crossing. And Woodard and Curran has given us a price of $8,000 to complete this study. So we're asking that the board approve that.
Okay, does that seem reasonable to you? I don't know much about arc flash studies. And Jason, does that seem like a reasonable number?
I'd say Steve Girardi, does that seem like a reasonable number because it's electricity. That's what he does.
Right.
It seems a bit high. It was just for the panels, right? For the 480?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. I would look at try to get a lower number. That it's not trying to save money, but you can do a whole distribution system for about 10. But
okay,
I would just take a look at somebody else to take a look at it. Who's your electrical contractor you guys typically use?
Mike Pfas, does he do those?
You guys, is it infrared? You guys use infrared? I thought I signed a warrant for somebody else. So
we usually use for any electrical work is Mike Pfas. 3-phase, is he?
Yeah, it's a 3-phase. They should be able to do that.
Is that Mike? I don't.
No. Mike is high voltage.
High voltage, sorry.
Any of those companies should have an engineer and staff to give you that information. Only looking at his breaker and speed.
Okay, I agree with Steve, and he's got
Steve, if you have anybody
much
good
more knowledge on this than I do, so I'm going to defer to him.
Can you send me a contact, Steve?
Yeah, I'll send you some people we work with.
Okay,
I just put in a car, but let's just try. You definitely want a PE to stamp off on that one.
And then we talked about the water from the reservoir, and then.
Okay, I just have a quick question though. How much sludge have we been generating? As much as usual or more? I know that Wellfield is down, but we're processing less water. So are we about usual on sludge production? Or are we having problems because of the manganese?
It's hard to say, but I would say we're processing less water, so we're creating less sludge. But organics hit a high of 18 or 20 a couple of weeks ago, and now they're starting to come down a little bit again. So it's been another season of high organics.
We also might, as far as the lagoons are concerned, there's the 2 bags that are outside of the lagoons right now up on the shelf after the emergency situation. We might look at getting rid of one of them in the near future to free up space just in case anything happens. It's fairly dried out. We took a sample yesterday, and we're going to see what the concentration is. But when I walk on the bag, it's pretty firm, meaning it has a fairly low water content.
Yeah, just a quick question. The Elms Meadow pipe. When's the kick? You think the estimated kickoff is that going to be? Fall?
I'm hoping within a week.
Oh, nice.
I reached out to the contractor. I just haven't heard back about dates that work for him.
Yeah, come on in.
We're also going to hire a full-time inspector for the project too. There's not enough bandwidth internally to monitor that project without.
And who pays for that, Jason? The inspector?
It'll come out. It's enough money in the appropriation to pay for that.
Okay. And any meeting minutes to approve?
Actually, before we go to the meeting minutes, John, do we have to approve Jason's the outside vendor to come in for the $5,000? Oh,
you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do, that's all the better.
All right, you want to make a motion, Steve? Maybe.
I make a motion to approve the surveying of Lilly Ponds organics and mapping.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all 3.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, any meeting minutes to approve?
Yes, we do. We have the last meeting with the executive session and the meeting before that. What were the dates of those, Brenda?
That would be June 21st and July 20th.
All right, so I make a motion, we approve the meeting minutes of June 21.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 20th.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion to approve the executive session minutes of the meeting of July 20th.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And there's no abatements, correct?
Correct.
We discussed that already. Remember, we did that.
No, well, there was a woman that came in about 10 minutes before the meeting.
Oh.
And I told her that it would have to wait till next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And any commission comments?
I just want to say thank you to everybody from Wood and Karen, Fred, Carl, Brendan, Jonathan, Jason, and our dear friend Brenda for working so hard, with that, magnecy problem. I mean, I'm sure that was a tough feat, and you guys did a good job. You should be proud of yourselves.
Thanks, Steve.
I agree.
Everybody should know that.
Good point, Steve. Okay, then I'll make a motion that we adjourn right at noon, right on time.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
12.
Aye.
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 All right, we'll send an email out for next meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys and ladies.
Thank you. Enjoy your day, guys.